What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Montana Method Podcast. One more time. As always, your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., author of Montana Method. Today, I have a very special guest. I have Major Jose Aragu with Miami-Dade Police Department. I appreciate you coming by. Another gentleman who's running for sheriff of Miami-Dade County, if you haven't found out by now. Still surprised at how many people don't know this is going on. I'm going to talk to him, ask him a couple interesting questions, get to the nitty gritty, what he's going to do if he gets elected, all that stuff. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great episode. Kick it.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. Promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.
Nelson, thank you very much for the invitation, and I look forward to a great conversation.
Definitely. I appreciate you coming by. I know you're still active duty, so I know it's not easy to make time for these things, which is pretty... Are you the only person who's active duty on the campaign?
There's a few others that are active duty, currently working within the agency.
Okay. Yeah, that's insane because I have like a job, and then to do this on my own time is it's hard to find the time for it. So I can only imagine if you're a police officer and then trying to run for sheriff is a lot to take on.
It's definitely difficult trying to balance family life, the election, the work, right, which is a priority because I still have to keep citizens safe every day.
100%.
So it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, and I can only imagine. And then when it all kind of intertwines is the hard part, right? Because it's like being a police officer and then sheriff is like taking that on a bigger scale, right? And then really public safety is just something. It's not even about being a police officer. That's everyone's concern, right? So that's I understand, and I can kind of see how that kind of like intermingles where you kind of take on the sense. It's like, no, I'm not just protecting the city. I'm making the city safe for like my loved ones, you know? I can see how that kind of all comes together. It all becomes like...
It does. It comes together, right? So for me, Miami's home. I migrated here from Cuba at a young age. And making sure that this city is safe ensures that my family's safe, right? That I'm safe. And you know, it's quite a challenge to keep this city safe. It's a growing city. It's booming, right? We see how business is growing. Property values are going up. And that's the testament of good policing, right? Good public safety. If there's good public safety, you attract more citizenship, and that creates jobs, opportunities for our population in Miami-Dade County, which is extremely important.
As we're seeing over the last few years, right? Because everybody's moving to Miami, you know?
So it's definitely challenging, right? So we're seeing what's happening in New York. We're seeing what's happening in California and Chicago. And all these other cities. And, you know, it's a blessing that we're here in Miami, and they all want to make Miami home.
Right.
But at the same time, good law and order is going to be extremely important in you know, in the way forward for us as a city. And our economy is doing great. I mean, things are getting really expensive.
Yeah.
As we see.
Insane.
But I think more job opportunities, the evolution of all these Fortune 500 companies moving to Miami-Dade County is going to be phenomenal for our economy and hopefully a more prosperous Dade County. But that can't happen without proper law and order, proper safety.
100%.
And that's the key to all of this, because it's what we're seeing in every other state or city, that people are relocating here because
100%.
there is no safety.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm glad you came on the show because your perspective is a bit different from... I had Mario on, but he's retired, right? So it's a bit different. You're still a police officer, and you're seeing like the changes that happen within the city year to year. So talk to me about 2019 Miami and 2024 Miami. What are the major differences that you see? Has the influx of people changed? I mean, obviously it's changed the city, but I want to hear the changes from your perspective. better or worse? Tell me a little bit about that.
So we definitely have a lot more people, right? And that creates challenges. It creates issues with traffic. It creates issues with congestion, and
which is the base of police work.
Correct, right? The difference from 2019 policing to now is we've had to evolve, just like everyone else, right? Just like technology has evolved. Now we have podcasts, and people watch a lot more podcasts than they do watch TV, right? So in every profession, we've evolved, and we've had to do things differently. And within the agency, we see the demand of more community policing now, right? The police department has become a part of the community, where before we used to be seen just as the men and women in uniform that used to enforce the law. Now we're seen as your neighborhood police officer, which is extremely important for the preventive piece of policing, right? And although I wish we could be a little bit more proactive in our method, policing has become reactive in the sense that we are just responding to whatever is in front of us, where in 2019 maybe we were a little bit more proactive. But there's a balance to that, right? I know a lot of people talk about our tactical narcotics team, which back in the early days was a team that used to go out to areas that had narcotic sales, and they would conduct a very strategic jump outs, as we call them, right, in these neighborhoods. But it was a cast net approach to policing, right? So if you're in a street corner and there's someone in that corner selling drugs, and the tactical narcotics team makes an approach, that person is arrested, and then everyone else in the area that has a bench warrant, whatever the case might be, right, ends up going to jail too. That in essence creates a level of fear within a community, right? And we've evolved past that. But now we are more strategic in the way that we approach our investigations, right? More Vice style, more long investigations in the sense of, we study what we're gonna do. We prepare to have a strategic approach to, we got the drug dealer, but not everyone else in the area had to suffer those consequences of being put in a position where are we being targeted by our police department, right? So police department, the police department has evolved. We've had to evolve as police officers, and what's happened in the nation it has truly affected our officers as well, right? A lot of our officers in Miami-Dade County are phenomenal, right? They go out there, they want to do the work day in and day out, and they work extremely hard to keep this community safe. But at the same time, they have the fear of, I'm wearing a body-worn camera. There's someone in a street corner with a cell phone. Am I going to say something that's inappropriate, and am I going to be held accountable, right? These are things that when I was growing up in the department didn't exist, right? And of course, misconduct is never tolerated. But these young officers have to police under a lot of pressure. And of course, it's something that's not spoken about, right? And it's not said. And by all means, this is not that we're trying to cover inappropriate behavior, because that's something that we would never do as the Miami-Dade Police Department. But it's just, it's a tough time to police, right? We live in an era of technology, and we've had to flip a switch, right? And change the way we do things, I think, for the positive of the community. I'm all about transparency, but it's different. It's different. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. Definitely.
It's a tough time now, but we have to support our police officers, right?
Right.
I'm a firm believer that sometimes we get things wrong. And, they ask, well, if you're elected sheriff, what are you going to do? And most people would answer, well, take care of the community, right? And I think, although that is a good answer, the better answer is to take care of those that take care of the community, and then everything else falls into place, right?
Right.
I think a good leader cares about his staff and fights for his staff. And if, the officers feel that there is a level of understanding between their sheriff, their boss, and they have clear expectations, but they feel that someone has their back,
Right.
I think we can accomplish great things
Right.
as an agency, and that in turn gives better service to our citizens.
Definitely. So, when I had Mario on, it was basically my introduction into this whole thing. I had no clue what was going on, and I brought him to kind of like, as the Cubans say, empapame un poco, to kind of figure out the temperature of things. So, correct me if I'm wrong. According to him, he basically said there was 15 people running right now, and about approximately 3 of you guys were only the real, like, actual people qualified for this job, and the rest of them were kind of like, just as we say in Miami, that the whole politics thing got involved, and then all of a sudden you have these people trying to, take control of the spot. What from what I'm seeing, obviously you're an active police officer. You're a major, so you're more than qualified to have. So I would consider you one of the guys who's actually trying to do the job and do it the right way. However, of course, we all know Miami, unfortunately, how things happen, and it seems like this is another attempt at people with power and money to kind of take control of something that really they shouldn't be involved in, which I feel is the major difference between a sheriff and a police department, right? Like, when it's a sheriff's office, you're elected by the people, you answer to the people, you're not controlled by a politician, right? It's the main difference I'm seeing. So from your perspective, what are you seeing in this election as far as, like, how many people are really interested because they want to do the job, like maybe you or Mario, and how many people are in there just because there's some sort of, like, I'll give you a great example, and I'm not scared of naming names. There's some guy, I forgot his name, that's coming down from Broward that's like running for sheriff or something, that's like endorsed by like the mayor or something. I would never vote for that guy if you're coming from Broward, right? Like, I want someone like you or like Mario, who is from Miami, was born in Miami, knows his city, knows his streets, knows the people here, can pull somebody over and have and be like, like, just have a normal conversation with somebody because you know me. You know who I am. You know where I'm from. You grew up just like I did. That's a sort of policing that's rare because since there's such a big population of us that are Hispanic and all that stuff in Miami, it's very rare to see that in other communities. We get it. I'm from here. I grew up here, so I get it. And other cities don't have that. And I don't want that to go away. You know what I mean? So what are you seeing in this election? How many people are actually trying to get this job, like really want to do right, want to do a good job, want safety for, and how many people, like how much of it are you seeing that other forces that are just trying to take control or play here? What are you seeing?
Look, I'll tell you what I see, right? I see, unfortunately, we have politicized the police department now, right? Whether you agree or you disagree with this being a partisan election, which there's other issues with that, right? In my opinion, this should absolutely be nonpartisan. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. The job of the sheriff is to protect the people.
100%.
And of course, that comes with political interest, right? And the fact that we are politicizing the police department really concerns me. Not only as a current major in the agency, but it also concerns me as a citizen of Miami-Dade County. We'll get into that. But you asked me about the candidates. I lost track of the amount of candidates, right? There's a lot of candidates, a lot of them that have been retired and have been out of the force for quite some time now. And of course, just like with technology. If you don't stay on top of technology, I mean, what is
You're
it?
outdated,
About
yeah.
a week or two, right? You're outdated. I think that some of the individuals that are running, in my opinion, are a bit outdated. But at the end of the day, my opinion doesn't matter, right? And quite frankly, I am not here to say who's more qualified, who is not qualified. But we should talk about education, experience, knowledge,
100%.
which are the things that matter for the citizens to make an informed decision of who they're going to vote for, right? There's a lot going on, with the race, and as we get closer, I assume is going to get worse, which also worries me, by the way, right? Because we have a certain brand that we have to protect. So what's going to happen if the guys that protect our community start attacking each other, right?
It's not good at all.
That's not good. It's
For
not
anybody.
good. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for our community. And
it shows that you guys aren't united.
correct.
So the rest of us, and I'm speaking as a citizen of Miami, I'll be like, so the cops are fighting each other. So who's doing their job to protect us?
100%, right? And egos play a big role,
Yeah.
right? Egos play a big role, and personalities play a big role. But I just want to be able to push my message forward and what I want to do for my community. And if I get elected, wonderful. If I don't get elected, let the individual that the citizens elected be sheriff, and we're going to continue to move forward and protect and serve our community and be there for our community, right? And at the end of the day, everything else is, doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter. So that's my perspective. Qualifications is a huge part of this. We're talking about a $1 billion budget. We're talking about a 5,000 man department, civilian and sworn. And we're talking about an extremely challenging transition. Imagine that everything that the county operates for us as an agency, the sheriff's office is going to have to take over. And you need someone with background, with education, that's prepared to make good, solid decisions with the best judgment possible. And it affects us as a community because every one of us pays taxes here,
100%.
right? So if the person doesn't have the qualifications, it could potentially impact our taxes because our funding comes from our general fund, right? So there's just so many things that could go wrong, but so many things that could go right. And that's where experience is going to be something that's going to make or break the sheriff's office. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's worrisome for me. And but I do think, right, that it's going to be an amazing opportunity for the community to have a direct voice with their police department, right? So here we are, it's interesting, and it's quite funny that we are moving the police department away from the mayor's office, and we're separating the powers, right? Which I think that is what this country was built on. But then at the same time, we're politicizing the election and we're making it partisan, right? And it's just there's so many things that make sense but don't make sense at the same time.
Typically, it's somehow it's fitting that this happens in Miami.
Yes.
Somehow, right?
Yes.
Miami is a place where things make sense, and at the same time, once you get here, they kind of don't make sense.
They don't. They don't. You're absolutely right.
We have our own. There's like a method to our madness, I guess you could say. It's chaotic, but at the same time, it's a buzz. It's all the moving parts move, and it looks like chaos, but because this is all kind of like in symbiosis, it all works,
Or at least we pray it works, right?
No, I always tell my friends, you guys bring your passport because this is another country down here, bro.
It really is.
Yeah,
It really is.
definitely. So, Jose, let's get in a little into you now. Tell me a little bit about, so you came from Cuba as a kid. Tell me a little bit about growing up in Miami, when you became a cop, how long you've been working in the department, all that stuff.
Absolutely. So I came from Cuba. Actually, my family went from Cuba to Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
Then we came over to Miami, and I lived my entire life in the area of West Miami.
Oh, okay, cool.
And
I live on off of 57 and 8th Street. I'm not far from you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So I was on 67th Avenue and 21st Street.
Oh, down there. Okay.
And I come from very humble beginnings. I mean, we got to this country, and I remember that in our first small apartment, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. We slept on the floor in a mattress, right? And me and my grandmother shared a bedroom. And my parents worked hard, and I always had a passion for public service, and it took me a while to think of that word, because it's truly a passion. Giving back and being there for the community is something that truly drives me. So as an early age, I was 14 years old, and my best friend said, "Hey, what do you think about joining the Fire Rescue Explorer program, which is now called the Cadet program?" And I said, "Hey, why not?" He says, "We get to ride in the rescue trucks, and we get to see what the firemen do." So at an early age, I volunteered most of my time to the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, and I was heavily involved in the cadet program. Then I became a police cadet in the city of Coral Gables. So I had my first opportunity to become a dispatcher in the city of West Miami, because I rode on the rescue truck in the station next to the police station. So they were looking for someone young that would want to be their overnight dispatcher. So I embarked on the journey, finally getting paid, right? Not volunteering. And my last year of high school, I worked the midnight shift in the city of West Miami.
Wow. Answering
phones and dispatching police calls. And I would change in the morning and go to school, right? And that's kind of like where the journey began. I attended George T. Baker Aviation School, and I went to South Miami Senior High. Again, very humble beginnings. I had the opportunity later to become a police officer in the city of West Miami, and it was a great experience. Got to learn from very seasoned officers there, and again, always chasing the American dream and wanting to grow and become better. For me, for my family, I applied for the Miami-Dade Police Department, and I was hired, and here I am today, right? I've been in law enforcement for 21 years. I grew through the ranks. I never had any intention of becoming a supervisor, right? As a matter of fact, my entire career, what I wanted to be was a canine handler. Because I wanted to be out there catching the most violent offenders in our community. I was involved in a police shooting with a armed robbery subject that carjacked an elderly man. And I worked in a lot of high-profile units. And then I said, you know what? Why don't I take the test, right? I became a sergeant. Then I went to investigations, obviously working patrol as a sergeant. I worked investigations as a sergeant, became a lieutenant, and worked investigations, again, road patrol as well. I've worked everywhere in the county. I am very well versed from county line to Monroe, right? of the demographics of every community in this county, because although we think Miami is a very big place and it's all the same,
It's not.
it's truly a melting pot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's a melting
definitely
pot of communities, and every community has different needs
100%.
that we need to attend to, and we need to be there for them, right? Whether it's a community that's getting riddled by gun violence, or a community that has an auto theft issue, or a community that wants police presence. There's just so many things. We saw what happened in Israel, right? And we had to have a large presence of police to protect our synagogues in the Northeast area. And that's what we're here for. We're here for our community, and we can't lose that focus. But, going back to me, I became a lieutenant at the Port of Miami. I was the executive officer, and I was promoted to police major. My perspective of policing is a bit different because although keeping the community safe, I think that everything we do is driven by our economy. I spent a good part of my career working at Miami International Airport, which is the largest economic engine to our county.
Right.
And Port Miami, which is the cruise capital of the world, right? I was the major there as well. And I got to see a different side of Miami, right? A Miami that if we thrive, we're creating jobs, we're creating opportunity. Our economy booms, as we talked about briefly in the beginning. And that is my perspective of law enforcement, right? It's not just, arresting a bad guy or addressing a crime problem. There's just so much more to law enforcement. Managing a budget, right? Are we on budget? Are we on track so that we're not costing the taxpayers more money? Are we hiring enough police officers for the amount of citizenship that we have in Miami-Dade County, right? We see our county continues to grow, and there's more building, more housing. There's multiple families living in housing. Look at what's happening in Hialeah. The city of Hialeah now is having a major issue with the rental of motorhomes from within.
I saw. Didn't they recently pass like a law?
So they were passing, I believe, a city ordinance on that, and hopefully that works out for the city. But that's something that needs to be addressed. But on the flip side of that, we have a homelessness issue in Miami-Dade County. So the city of Miami Beach immediately acted and sponsored and passed an ordinance where they're basically warning a homeless, and then they're being arrested. But if we're not on the same page, that homeless that they're warning is not going to Miami Beach again, but now he's in the unincorporated area of Miami-Dade County, right? So are we all sitting at a table together, and are we all talking about real solutions for our entire community? And does everybody have a voice at the table?
Right.
And I have to tell you that as much as people say that we do, we very much work in silos. And as a sheriff, I think we can bring a voice, stop working in silos, and look at a holistic approach at the betterment of the entire Miami-Dade County, which is extremely important to our community, because although there are imaginary lines between Coral Gables and the city of West Miami and the unincorporated Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office, all those lines are imaginary, right? Crime affects us all.
It's all Miami-Dade County at the end of the day.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
I'm with you. We can be tribal. Humans are tribal in nature, and we see it in the city. When you're, oh no, I'm from Coral Gables, because that's how we are. Yeah, when you live here, you can't say I'm from Miami, obviously, because everyone's from Miami. So no, I'm from Coral Gables. No, I'm from Kendall. No, I'm from Miami Beach. No, I'm from Sunny Isles. No, I'm from Homestead. And it becomes tribal because that's your part of the city. No, forget, like, no. You know, whatever. The thing with me was I grew up in so many parts of the city that I can't even say. So check this out. When I was born, I was in Little Havana for 3 years. Then we moved to West Kendall. After that, we were in Kinloch. Then I moved to Hialeah Gardens. After that, I ended up in Carroll City, and then I moved back to Coral Gables. So I'm literally a child of Miami-Dade. That's the thing with me. When people ask me where I'm from, I tell them I'm from everywhere, bro. You know, I'm from. So it's funny how I see that in other people, but I don't see that in myself. I'm not tribal about Miami. I love every part of Miami, whether it's a Jewish person in Sunny Isles, you know, whether it's a Brazilian person in Brickell, a Venezuelan person in Doral. Miami to me is my home, and I can live in any part of it. I love the city so much. I can never live anywhere else. I really can't, because I've become so accustomed to the way of life here that I become homesick when I'm not here, man. I just miss it so much. And to see how many people have embraced the city, come here, love it, want to live here, it makes me happy because people recognize how beautiful the city is, right? How great it is. But also it concerns me because I don't want this place to change too much, because once you change it from what it is, it's not Miami anymore. You know what I mean? So you said something I really admire. You said that you were never looking for a position of authority or whatnot. And that's what makes you qualified, believe it or not. Because it's throughout history, it's the people who thought they weren't qualified or didn't want the position of authority that ended up taking that position of leadership and did a great job, because it was never their intention to have power over other people. They just wanted good for others, and that's what makes them qualified. You know what I mean? So from my perspective and from what I've learned throughout my short life, that's what makes you qualified for the job.
I appreciate that. You know, it's quite interesting that I'm in this position today, right? You know, it's, you know, look, do we believe in, you know, I'm a big believer in God, right? And you know, I pray that I can make a difference, right? And I do that every day. I don't need to be a sheriff for that to happen.
Right.
But I'm really worried as to what our future is going to be.
100%.
Because all you have to do is watch the news, right? And see what's happening, you know, in the nation, around the world, right? And, you know, this is not about world politics or national politics,
right,
but we have to protect our Miami-Dade County. This is our home.
100%.
And I love it here, as you do. From Homestead to Sunny Isles, I've worked everywhere, and every community is unique, and every community is special in their own way. And I think that's what makes us a great city, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you can go to a rodeo, you can go to our youth fair, to so many wonderful things that, you know, are coming to the city. The Formula One race. I mean, we've hosted Super Bowls.
We don't have Santa's Enchanted Forest at Tropical Park anymore, pero bueno, you know.
Now it's called something else, right?
Yeah.
It's called
and
something else.
And they moved Santa's Enchanted Forest to Doral or something. It's not the same, but well, what are we going to do? You know?
So, but none of that can't happen without safety,
100%.
right? Which is truly why we're here, and which is truly why whoever is aspiring to be sheriff should care about.
100%.
You know, this is not about politics or
money,
special interest or money. And, you know, I think that people are seeing through that in many ways, right? Because
people are tired of the traditional politics of Miami. I'm nauseated by it. I see the typical Miami face of a politician, and it's just, you know, it just disgusts me at this point, because, like, as Cubans say, hasta cuando? Like, until when are we going to buy into this crap? I just want somebody to do their job. I don't want someone to... And it feels like this is a position where, you're right, it shouldn't be politicized at all, because you only answer to the people. So I'm hoping that's what ends up happening. I think that is what's going to end up happening, because people are just tired of it. People are tired of the...
I think so, right? I think people are tired. I think people are seeing, you know, through it. And that's going to be wonderful for our community, because they're going to be making a decision that's going to impact their lives tremendously, right? This sheriff's race is a very big deal. I think that not only are some of the people not taking it seriously, but a lot of the people don't even know this is happening, which
is the original point I made.
which is the original point, and this is going to be so important. I think much more important than our mayoral race, which of course our mayor is responsible with overseeing the entire county budget and all the other departments. But public safety is a big deal for this community.
You bring up an interesting point. Isn't it interesting how world politics and federal politics are such a big selling point nowadays, and everybody has a political opinion, but when it comes down to the community, which affects you personally the most as a person, who is sheriff in your city affects you way more than who's president in your country.
It absolutely does.
And the fact that people aren't even aware of it, I almost feels like it's a gimmick. Like it feels like it's oh, pay attention to this, so you don't pay attention to what's right in front of your face. And it's insane that people just, the mayor or the sheriff, or it's that particularly is gonna affect your life in ways you couldn't even see coming, and people aren't aware of it.
Look, there's a saying that that's very important, right? And you really have to think about it, but the saying says that politics are always local, right? And they affect us tremendously.
100%.
Because it's going to be our daily livelihood,
right?
And that's something that's crucial to the community. I want to talk to you a little bit about my platform and
sure, and
the offers or commitment or promise that I want to make the community,
of
because
course.
There are things that when I came up with them, I sat down and I said, what are things that I really care about? Putting aside that I'm a major, putting aside that I've grown in this agency in many different ways, right? When I was at the port, I oversaw the harbor unit, the canine unit, the incident containment team, all these units that were crucial to the safety of the cruise capital of the world. But what affects our community? And, the first thing that really struck me was school safety.
Which is a point I talked with Mario. That was important, an important point, yeah.
School safety is my number one priority. I think that parents need to be able to go to work, and grandparents and whoever, knowing that their kids are safe in school. Making sure that there's police officers, that they're present, and of course, not blurring the lines that we do have a Miami-Dade School Board Department, but they need their help. We need their help. There's schools that have one officer that should have two. There's schools that don't have officers, and we assist as the Miami-Dade Police Department, the school board, to make sure that there are officers in these schools. But how are we training them, right? How are we evolving? How are we making sure that our kids are safe at schools and that every school has a police officer?
100%.
Right? Some people are saying, well, how are you going to accomplish that? How are we going to budget that? We can't put a price on our kids.
100%.
Right? And if we have to go to Tallahassee and we have to get more money for the police budget or go in front of our board of county commissioners,
then it needs to happen. 100%.
It needs to happen, right? Point blank, it needs to happen.
No one's going to disagree.
And to me, that's very important.
100%.
There's so much that we can talk about, training, preparedness, doing, site assessments at these schools. But we also have to think about places of worship. What's happened to the Israelis, right? In this community, right? Are they going to pray, and are they afraid of what can possibly happen in their synagogue? That to me is important. These are all things that are extremely important. Large shopping centers. Are we doing site assessments of Dolphin Mall, the Aventura Mall,
Westland Mall. all those places.
Westland Mall. Are we working together in collaboration with all these agencies where these shopping centers or large shopping malls are at to be able to make sure that they have the adequate training, staffing, and we can support as a sheriff's office? See, the intention is not for the sheriff to take over jurisdictions that are not unincorporated.
Right.
But if we can help, we are going to absolutely help, because a criminal doesn't see boundary lines,
100%.
right? You know, it's all Miami-Dade County, as we spoke earlier. But anyway, so, you know, school safety, the safety of large infrastructure, you know, our airport and our seaport. And these are things that I bring from my background of working at these two large economic engines. Then, you know, the second point that's extremely important to me is proactive policing instead of a reactive approach to what we do as police officers. That is extremely important, because if we attack the root cause of crime and we are effective and efficient at that, then our crime goes down. Which, by the way, there's this misconception that crime in Miami-Dade County is up. You know, it's not true. Crime is actually down 4% last year, and we ended the year at 4%, I should say. And it was only one category which we were up in, and that was robberies, and that's because of the way the categorization of the crime goes. A lot of the domestic issues, if there's like a phone snatching or something like that,
that's technically a robbery.
it's categorized as a robbery. But
so for people who don't understand, how do like 4% of what? Explain that a little bit.
So the way we categorize crime is, you know, within the agency, there's part one crimes like, you know, robberies, auto thefts, sexual batteries, all these crimes, right? In every area of crime, we were down, with the exception of robberies, which I believe we were up about 3-4%, and that was as it relates to these domestic robberies. So our police department and our officers are doing an amazing job in this community, right? I'm tired of hearing that, well, we need a sheriff because there's no morale on the force. People, you know, the morale is through the ground, and that is absolutely not true, right? Our officers are doing great work day in and day out, and they've had to learn to police under a different time, wearing a body-worn camera, you know, a computer in their car, you know, GPSs, etc. Right? It's a different style of policing, and they're excelling at it, and it makes me proud as a district commander. We've led Miami-Dade County in crime reduction in my district last year, which is the Midwest district. So we cover between Okeechobee and Byrd.
Okay.
Out to Chrome and Lejeune.
Oh, so that's where I live.
We had so you'll be happy to hear we had a 23% reduction in crime.
That's awesome.
In the Midwest district, but it's not a testament to my work, right? It's a testament of the officers' work. You know, sometimes a little leadership, you know, can make a difference. You know, having good leadership and having someone that supports their mission and gives them what they need in order to succeed is what you need in order for them to go out and thrive, right? Which is what a sheriff should be bringing to the table.
100%.
I know we got a little bit off track, but anyway, I want to create a crime commission board, and in the preventive piece of crime, instead of it being reactive, more proactive. And I want to invite our local universities, right? We have, you know, the University of Miami, St. Thomas, FIU, and some that obviously I'm not going to mention them all, but they have great PhDs, right? In sociology, and economy. We have wonderful criminologists, right? And if we bring all these people to the table and we start strategically looking at the approach to policing, we can accomplish great things. And then in the back end, we bring our social workers, right? So, you know, a lot of these social economical issues that are occurring in our county are driving the crime, right? So if we work at that, we might reduce our crime even more than what we've already done. And that'll be a huge accomplishment. But a lot of everything that I'm talking about comes with experience, preparation, knowledge, right? And that is what I bring to the table. You know, my third point is traffic. We have to be tough on traffic laws in this county. It's horrendous what I see, right? I see people riding scooters on sidewalks, right?
Yeah.
And that's
something in the last few years that has gotten wild because we didn't see that before. You would see a scooter here and there, but now they're all over the city, everywhere. Everywhere.
There's scooters on sidewalks.
It's crazy.
They're speeding in school zones.
The driving in the city has always been out of hand, but in the last few years, it's gotten insane. This is just crazy.
It's truly affecting us, and it affects the everyday citizen,
100%.
right? And we need to work extremely hard at that. You know, get more police motorcycles in the street, have more motormen. And look, it's not all about giving tickets or citations, right? It's about education as well. It's about the preventive piece. If we have more officers on motorcycles, there will be less speeding,
100%.
right? Just because of the mere fact that there's
presence.
visibility and there's presence, right?
Yep.
We need more police cars on the streets. And those are all things. And when I say that, I don't mean that we need to hire more police officers. What I'm saying is that we need to strategically look at
position these officers in the right places.
Positioning this department and restructuring and reanalyzing our resources to be able to provide better services to Miami-Dade County. It's not we're saying we need more police cars, we need more police officers, which in turn is going to cost us more taxes. That's not the way we look at it, right? We look at, how many officers per citizen, per zone, per area. There's so many strategic ways to look at this. And people think that what we do daily is an easy task. I got to tell you, it's extremely challenging.
Definitely.
Right? So, we spoke a little bit about traffic, and, that's my 2 cents into that. There's another point that's extremely important to me, not only as a current major in the agency, but as sheriff, and that is transparency.
Very important.
We always talk about the great things we're doing. We're excellent at that.
Who points out their mistakes, though? Who points out the bad stuff? Very few people.
Those things,
yes,
go by the wayside.
And that, if you're capable of doing that, that is a true sign of a leader. Someone who's willing to be like, listen, guys, I did this. It was a mistake. I'm sorry. Someone who's willing to admit they were wrong. You want to talk about ego? We're all
correct. You're right. So listen, I work in a police department. I know a lot about egos.
No, I can't even imagine.
But and I gave this one a lot of thought, right? And I said, how do I reach the masses as a sheriff? How do I connect with my community to see what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong? And currently we have a system in the police department. You write an email, right? The email comes in, whether it's to the mayor's office, the director's office, or to my office. And, we send an email down. The email comes back up on how we addressed it and if we spoke to the constituent or if we didn't. And, it's a great system. But again, the evolution of police work. And then I see all of this, right? These things, podcasts, radio, going on television, which, by the way, I'm not a fan of any of it. I like to be behind the scenes, and now I guess I'm in this public light. But anyway, I said the police department should start the weekly podcast with the sheriff.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And the sheriff can come.
this guy, this guy won the election. Oh my God.
You know, and I think to me that's great, right?
That would be fantastic,
with an
man.
open phone line.
Yes.
With
Wow.
an open phone line.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna have answers to the tough questions.
I love that, man.
And to the ones that we don't have answers to, we're gonna say we don't have the answer to that.
I'm willing to bet the $20 I got in my pocket that he's the only one who says he's gonna do this. No one else says, bro.
To me,
Hey.
to me, it's about transparency.
I love that, man.
Right? And if we're wrong, we're wrong. If we're right, great. But if we're wrong, we have to fix it, right? And you know what? I think we only become better when we're challenged. You know, we become better when we're challenged.
150%.
And you know, the ultimate goal is to provide a better service.
150%.
To provide a better service. So you know, originally I said, well, I want to have these, you know, quarterly briefings to brief the community. And I said, you know, in this new day and age of technology, what would it be to take an hour and a half, 2 hours out of my week and sit down and talk to people, right? You know, I can't fix what I don't know it's broken. And that should be the bigger purpose
100%.
of the sheriff. So just so many wonderful ideas that will be implemented. And anyone that knows me knows that my commitment is as good as gold, right? That if I commit to something, you know, it'll get done. I don't believe in empty promises, you know, because I'm not a politician. And not that I'm knocking a politician, but you know
I'll
what?
knock them for you.
You know, I think, but let me tell you something about the politicians, right? Because, you know, you hear a lot of, you know, well, you know, politicizing and not politicizing, and we're all fed up with politics. And you're right. We are all fed up with politics. But we need to have wonderful relationships with those politicians.
We do.
Because if those relationships are there, see, you know, one thing that I've learned is everything in life is relationships, right? And if we have good relationships with our politicians, with our law enforcement partners, with our city officials, and we all get on the same page, we can accomplish great things. And at the end of the day, the ones that reap the great things of the great work that a sheriff or the politicians or do is our people, right? Our people. You know, and then the last point that I want to make to you is, and this is something that I really want to address aggressively, is the insurance fraud in our community, right? Residential insurance fraud, vehicle insurance fraud, because plain and simple, have you seen your bill lately on
It's gone up.
residential, you know, premiums?
My car insurance went up, and I haven't had a citation in years.
Yeah. And
it's gone up and up and up. And over the last couple of years, they keep raising, and it's like, dude, what? I don't get this. It's crazy.
And car insurance the same.
Insane.
Right? You know, unfortunately, there's a lot of individuals that are engaging in staging accidents to be able to go to a doctor and you know, go after these premiums. And at the end of the day, we're the ones that pay the price for that. I had the opportunity to meet the CEO of Citizens Insurance Group. He came to one of my citizens advisory meetings, and I just had one question for him. Why are premiums going up,
high.
right? Why are they so high? And are they because of storms? And his response to me was, quite frankly, yes, storms affect our premiums, but not as much as the fraud that's being committed, right? And we need to establish a task force that specifically targets individuals that are doing insurance and residential insurance fraud, because at the end of the day, it affects us all.
It does.
And, you know, I look at things big picture. How can we have the largest impact in our community to be able to have a safer community, but a community that our citizens feel that their police department is doing what they have to do in order for them to pay less taxes,
Right.
not have individuals speeding in a school zone, right? All these things, you know, can I go to church or synagogue or even a mosque, right? We talk a lot about our Israelis that live in Miami-Dade County. We also have a lot of Muslims.
We do.
And this is not about the Muslims and the Israelis. And these are conversations that people don't want to have, right?
Right.
And I'm okay having them. My job is to protect everyone
Everybody.
in the community. Everyone. It doesn't matter where you're from, what religion you are,
Or what you believe
what
in.
color you are. It does not matter to me. Everyone in this community is important. And we need to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're delivering excellence every day to Miami-Dade County, right? Plain and simple, it doesn't matter. And if we create a Miami-Dade County where we are one and there's less division, we all win. And I think the sheriff plays a huge role at being the unity piece that this community needs.
100%. Definitely. Jose, I really appreciate you coming. I got a lot out of this. I see from what I've seen so far, you are very fit for what it takes to become a good sheriff, man. I hope you win. And it seems like this could be a very good change for our city, for Miami. You know, as you know, I love this place. I can't leave it, even if I tried. Chris, I hope Christy and Randy are watching. They're probably pretty excited you came on. Thank you again for taking time out of your day. I know you still have a full-time career, and it takes a lot of your, a lot of time. It takes commitment and discipline and dedication to take time out of your day to do these kinds of things. Before I end, I'd like to, if you're willing to do this Sheriff's podcast once you get elected, you have my full support. My studio will support you in any way we can. Will you count on me? You have my phone number. You can call me, whatever you need. If you want me to just be kind of consult, or if you need my help technically, or if you want to do it here, whatever you want to do with us, I have, you have my full support, 100%. I'd love to be a part of that.
Thank you so much. I'm humbled by that. And absolutely everybody's going to have a part, because the only way we do it and we do it right is if we do it together.
100%.
So I really appreciate your time. The one thing that I didn't tell you, and it'll take a few more seconds, is my qualifications, right? So, I have a master's degree from the Florida International University in emergency management. I graduated from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government and Public Policy. And I also attended the Naval Postgraduate School, which is a very prestigious school, and graduated their executive leadership program, amongst many other schoolings that I have. The Southern Police Officers Institute Command Development course, right? And all these things, coupled with my trajectory of being a sergeant, lieutenant, executive officer, major, are what qualifies an individual to be sheriff. And I think that's very important. And I want our voting base to be able to just make an educated decision of who their sheriff is going to be.
Right.
It doesn't have to be me, but just an educated decision on who they're going to vote for. And the best way of doing that is, I believe every candidate has a website. Mine is at the www.araguforsheriff.com, and maybe you can share that with your listeners, because it's extremely important for them to know who they're voting for. We're also on Instagram, developing a good background, or I should say a solid following. But we'll see what happens. I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you coming. Thank you again. And again, if you win this election, don't hesitate to call me. You have my full support for this podcast. If it's something you seriously want to do, this is my passion. This is what I love doing. This gave me a real shot at life to make something of myself, and I'm very passionate about podcasting. So, and I'd be excited to help you on that venture. So, Jose, again, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Alrighty, guys, it's that's the end of this episode. Thank you again for tuning in. Yo, Elijah. Thank you again for... Camera. Thank you again for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. As always, push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless, guys. Catch you on the next episode.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.